podcast. This is your host, Santi, along with my fellow host, Dave. How are you, Dave?
I'm good, Santi. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. And tonight we got a great guest, someone that I've been wanting to interview for a little while now. Hey, Troy. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, man, glad to be here. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I mean, it's an honor.
Let's not get crazy.
I mean, no, but really, I've been I've been watching you play with several bands over the years, and yeah, I mean, I always like the sound of your playing, the drum sound you got, and you play with a lot of guys, a lot of people over the years. So I always thought it would be interesting to have you on the show and share some stories, basically.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm here for. I got lots of them, some good, some bad, some ugly, but needless to say, one of my slogans is the music business and being in this business is I kind of say, well, hey, sometimes we do it just for the stories. We're not getting rich, we're not getting famous, but damn it, we have a lot of good stories, and sometimes I feel like, hey, that at a minimum is a good reason to do this.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah.
Definitely.
You just you just reminded me of the little like breakdown portion of Kickstart My Heart, where it says like when we started this band, all we needed was a laugh. And all that part just reminded me of that, and yeah, I agree with that sentiment. Yeah, for
Yeah, well,
sure.
listen, when you're a kid like I was at 11, 12 years old, listening to Kiss and having a garage with a drum set and your brother's band, he had a little lighting rig and we had a small PA and we got into it because we wanted to be like Kiss. We wanted to play, we didn't know anything about the politics of the music industry and all, especially
Right.
now, 50 years later, things are way different than they were back in the formative years. But there was an innocence. It was just to play the music and to be the guys up on the stage. And obviously Kiss, represents that end
Mhm.
all be all for many generations. And then as you get into the business and you learn a little bit more about it, it's like, wait, why did I do this again? And then I have parents go, hey, my son wants to play drums. What do you recommend? And I recommend stay in school, you know.
Right. I mean, sure, yeah. We see it from the other side, I guess, right? From the fan side, I guess. And
Very much so, yeah.
yeah, and it's. I mean, we can only imagine what it's like to actually be inside of the business, in the swamp, you might
Yeah,
say,
it's
right?
that's putting
And
it that's putting it mildly. But you said that, we don't see all that stuff from the fan side. And it's that moment when the fans are watching the band and the band gets to experience the fans and there's this back and forth. Because it really takes, listen, if you have a shitty band, you're gonna have some not so happy fans. You know, if you have a good band and you have good fans, that energy, they feed off of each other and we're all there for that same experience. So you know, the fans shouldn't hear about all the bullshit that happens behind the scenes. And a lot of it
Mhm.
is unnecessary, but at the end of the day, people go, well, do you enjoy doing this for a living? And it's like, I play on stage for those 2 hours or whatever for free. It's the traveling and, the way, checking into the hotel and we don't have a Farrell listed here. It's all that nonsense. All right, we have a 12-hour flight to our destination. And then when we land there, we've got about a 4-hour drive to it's like, what? All that stuff is what you get paid for. The shows are, for the fun. And, we do that because we love the music. And fans shouldn't have to hear all the nonsense because they just had a shitty day at work or maybe their wife threw a bowl of spaghetti at them. They want to enjoy a big rock show and not hear of all the bullshit. So, we try and keep that stuff under wraps a little bit because, who wants to just talk about
Show
the bad
must
stuff
go
all the
on.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah, show must go on. You got to do what you got to do to get to the gig.
Oh,
Yeah,
I mean, for sure. And
it's
you see how these bands that after all these years they absolutely hate each other, right? and a lot of times when they give interviews and they people ask them why is that, they always, some of them, I mean, they always say like, I don't know, the business broke us. I mean, we just couldn't handle either the fame or the money or all the stuff that comes right with being on the spotlight. And I guess nothing prepares you for that. I mean, when you start a band, obviously you have all these big dreams, right, about making it big or whatever,
Yeah.
and the people who actually did it, right? I mean, nothing prepares you for what comes after. I mean, so like the ACDC song says, right? It's a long way to the top, and it's lonely there, right?
Well, when you're in your garage and you're writing songs, there's, a brother and a sisterhood with everybody that's in your band, but you really get to see the true colors when there is some success and some business involved,
Hmm.
and some people, really start latching onto that business. I mean, look at the Black Crows, two brothers, couldn't get it together for many years. Look at the band Oasis, that's
Yeah.
all, you know, a lot of it, obviously, a lot of it is ego and how people deal with it. But I've been on the shitty side of the business before, where I kind of go, well, I don't want to work with that person again if that's their character, you know. But then again, you sit there and go, yeah, but if that dude called me for a tour right now, would I be able to put that behind me and just put it to the side? And depending on the case and what I was doing, you find ways to do it. I think people that are songwriters and the principal owners of the music, like a Liam and Noel Gallagher, or the two brothers in the Black Crows, the Robinson brothers, there's a lot more at stake there. When you're just a hired gun guy, you go, I'll put my ego aside so I can go out and work for 6 weeks, But I
Hmm.
get it. After a while, the business becomes what it is, because it is a big business. And ultimately, people start making decisions based on the money in the business and not on the loyalty that you have to your fellow bandmate. And as I get older, I see a lot less loyalty in this business, and it's sad. It is really sad, because at the end of the day, strip all that stuff away, we're all in our garage playing. I want to rock and roll all night and party every day, just because that's what we're there for. So the business is unnecessary, or I should say, a necessary evil.
Yeah, and
Yeah, very
I
much
don't want to
so.
go all I don't want to go all TMC on you, but as we roll into yet another episode of the ongoing Steve Summers versus Chrissy Majors
Oh yeah.
story, I remember you at some point you were a booking agent for them, right? For Pretty Boy Floyd.
Yeah, yeah. So, I've got a front row seat outside of the ring, between watching the social media like everybody else. I actually played in Pretty Boy Floyd for a couple years, and I was at a booking agency called Artists Worldwide, um, about a year before I got in the band, and then for I think as I found my way out of that band, I found my way out of the agency as well, because the agency was owned by the guitar player, Christy Majors.
Right.
And so yeah, as far as what those two guys are doing, it's obviously very entertaining. I've had my run-ins with both of them, over the years. I mean, one of my favorite stories is getting fired from Pretty Boy Floyd because they thought I got an extra hotel room for me, like I snuck an extra hotel room, when
Nice.
that's not how it went down. I hadn't found everybody, because I was, when I was booking and playing drums in Pretty Boy Floyd, I was also tour managing it. So I was arranging all the stuff. So I'm working with a promoter in Sweden, and not only am I, a member of the band, but I'm also, representative of the booking agency. I had John Karabi there. We had other artists there. So, I was doing a lot as a booking agent for this guy and his festival, and really trying to help him. And I had done a bunch of artwork for him. And he's like, "Wow, thanks for doing that." So when I got there, he hands me a hotel key and goes, "That's for you." And I said, "Well, what is this for?" He goes, "Well, this is for all the extra stuff you did." I said, "Wow." So I'm thinking, hang on a second, because usually, we would get two rooms and two guys would share each room. And I would share with Chris, the bass player. and
Mm.
Christy and Steve would share, which I don't think those days are ever going to happen again. The Odd Couple, but it's before I realized that we had gotten a third room. I get my bags in there. I realize the bass player's not there. I'm now going to find them to go, hey, we got an extra room. Do you guys want to take it? One of you guys want to split off, and I'll hang with the bass player. He and I got along great. We still good friends to this day. So I didn't care. I didn't need my own room. And well, they had gotten wind that I had the room, and next thing you know, they're chasing me down the. Chris was chasing me down the hallway. Christy chasing me down the hallway as if I had bamboozled the. I got my own secret room, and I just hadn't gotten my bearings straight. Didn't find them. Like there was just a lapse in time before everything came together, and they're thinking I was pulling. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And so I proceeded to get fired from the band for that and maybe probably other things, who knows. I was never really told, other than they were mad about this thing. And then I remember Steve Summers asking me, because we hadn't even played the show yet, and usually you don't want to fire somebody before your show, because
Right.
things might get a little dodgy. But he comes up, he's like, hey man, you're not going to throw the show, are you? And I go, dude, I'm a professional. You think I'm going to waste my reputation to come make you guys look bad? I go, you guys can look bad on your own. You don't need my help. And no, of course, I'm going to be the kick-ass drummer you've had in the last year plus in this band. And I'll do one more show. And I did, because you got to be pro, and so anyway, yeah, those guys are going on today about what's happening, and they're getting sued. Steve Summers is getting sued by Christie because he's selling fake merch and using the logo and booking the band. Who knows? And then I think there's also a lawsuit between Chris and the other partner of their agency, Artists Worldwide. So Chris is kind of suing everybody. I don't know the the crux of all of his lawsuits, but I would hope that he's if he's gonna file a lawsuit, which takes a lot of work, he's got some reasons to do it. And I guess we'll see how that all plays out on social media. I do a radio show on Wednesdays, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit. But I invited them both on the show, and they said, "Well, we're not going to go on there because our attorneys advised that we don't say anything about." I'm like, "You guys are saying shit about each other every day on social media. Like, what is this going to do?" So
Right.
anyway, they've both since declined to come on the show, and that they're going to speak about their issues in the court of law, which again we see is still not the case. We see those entertaining social media memes and whatnots every day. But yeah, man, it's a crazy business. Two guys in a band for 30 plus years or have an affiliation, and now they're throwing bald jokes and fat insults at each other on Facebook daily. I mean, it really is sad. It's sad.
It is. Yeah, I guess. I mean,
Yeah, and then there seems to be a lot of that amongst bands, especially from that era, where
Yeah,
at some point you had two Great Whites, you had two LA Guns, you had all this stuff going on. I don't know. I
Saigon.
think at one point there were multiple versions of Rat, I believe.
Yeah. There were at one point there you could argue there were three, affiliations to Rat happening as recent as last year too. So and then now in the news, Saigon Kick, the singer
Oh yeah,
Matt and
yeah, that
Jason
song.
going at each other. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that stuff to me is entertaining. And then it's also really kind of sad because I think any of those bands from that era, outside of the heavyweights doing the stadium tour, any of those C and D level bands that never, they're on borrowed time. And, Saigon Kick was not a huge band, but critically acclaimed,
Oh, they
and
were they were fantastic
yeah.
together.
So, you know, I mean, you're splitting pennies here. You're cutting pennies literally in half by having diluted versions of the band. Not to say that Saigon Kick's going out as Matt's Saigon Kick and Jason doing his thing with Phil, but it's just it really is sad that they can't get it together for the few $100 they'd make to go out and do it for the sake, because they're obviously, you don't ramp up a tour or a couple shows like that because you're going to get rich. You're doing that
Yeah,
because hey, it's been 30 years, we like these songs, this was a part of our life, let's put the bullshit aside for a weekend and go out and enjoy this and do it for the fans. But obviously,
yeah.
they can't get it together. A lot of these bands cannot. And you're looking at very talented people, but with common sense and sensibility, a lot of these guys lack it. It's that left brain artistic thing. You don't have the common sense, but goddamn, you can write a great song. So it's
Yeah.
the
I
give and
could
take,
I
I guess.
could I could understand it if we were talking about like some hot-headed 20-something year olds, right?
Yeah,
But we're all grown-up people. I mean, and
you'd
and
think.
it's 30 plus years since your first album. I mean, how I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I
That's
guess it
when
is what
that's
it
when
is.
managers are earning their 15%, keeping these bands on the road because I was out on the 2014 Motley Crue tour and that Vince Neil, we got to park in the compound as the opening act, opening up for before Alice Cooper, only
Mhm.
because Vince never parked there. He parked way out in the parking lot. But that's good management saying, listen, you guys don't have to break bread and kumbaya together, but you need to be up on stage for those 2 hours between 9 and 11 to cash the check. And that's why some managers get that 15% because they keep a multi $100 million tour on the tracks.
Right.
But yeah, that stuff's everywhere where these guys don't see each other at all, except for the 2 hours they're on stage. And then the second the last, you know, uh, bomb has gone off and the confetti and the lights start to come on, those guys are all out in their buses, like traveling to the next city, not saying hi or high five or hey, great job tonight. It's like
Yeah.
out.
It's all facade. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Like being a fan back in the MTV days and all that. You see the camaraderie between all the band members, and it's like an amazing thing. And as a fan, you think, man, that's got to be awesome to be with. Here you are with your friends, and you're touring the world. You're doing all the stuff you
Yeah.
love to do. You're living it up. And when I start thinking about bands, and there are a lot of bands that go their separate ways after each show and just meet up, that's crazy to me looking at that now. But I guess if you're in that situation, it's got to be hard to maintain, that friendship or that relationship, especially when, you go through so much. And obviously there are a lot of substance abuse issues throughout those years. Everybody knows it. It's got to be, I mean, it's got to be hard on you as musicians to be able to maintain those relationships. You seem to me like you're somebody who's got a good head on your shoulders and probably didn't get mixed up with a lot of that uh, outside stuff that could damage, you know,
Yeah, no, no, no. I
your
appreciate that. I,
personality.
I think my biggest downfall is, sometimes I speak my mind a little bit. I got a big mouth, and I'm not afraid to say, hey, this doesn't feel right to me.
Mhm.
And sometimes the guys that are running the band, they just don't want any friction, or they don't want to be challenged, or they don't want to take a constructive criticism. And it's like, hey, I can find another jackass to do this gig for half of what I'm paying you. So keep your keep your opinions to yourself. But I always feel that I come from a good place for the greater good of all. And hey, I'm not critiquing you and saying hey, you're an asshole. I'm saying, hey, we can why can't we improve this situation? Why do we have to be out here accepting it? One of my least favorite phrases, although sometimes it is appropriate, is it is what it is. No, it is what it is because you're accepting it to be that way. But
Right.
yeah, getting back to, seeing our favorite bands, fight with each other on the internet, it's kind of sad because back in the day, like Aerosmith and, Motley Crue, and like these were all gangs, of people that put
Mhm.
together these songs. And you didn't see a band go up there with replacement members. Now you can't get away from it. You're lucky if you got one original guy in the band. I mean, obviously people getting older, they go different directions with their life. They pass away, things like that happen. But you would never see 20, 30 years ago, uh, our favorite bands having, somebody get replaced. And in the case of Aerosmith, when Joe Perry was out, it was like, oh my God, the whole world was like split. It was a big deal back then.
Mhm.
Nowadays,
And
it's
that happened in Cleveland.
in Cleveland.
That-
There you go.
that
So,
did, yes, it did.
So yeah, it is a different time for sure for music, and it's some good, some bad, some ugly.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Motley Crue on the stadium tour when they passed through Buenos Aires last year, and yeah, I mean, going back to what you said about fans like not interacting with each other after show. I mean, I don't remember Vince Neil ever smiling, not even once during the show, and
Yeah.
yeah, he introduced the band in the most awkward way, saying, "Hey, this is my bassist, Nicky Six. This is my drummer, Tommy Lee." But it's not. It was like an AI doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like a robot.
He's
Yeah,
going through the motions like he's
yeah, it was
just
clearly something that he did every night, and it's not like, yeah, this is the moment where we introduce the band. I mean, of course it's like that. I don't pretend it to be any different, but at least pretend it's not like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's kind of nice to know that the four guys up on stage really like each other. And obviously, back in the day, Motley Crue, when those four rolled into any town, I mean, they took it over as a team. And
yeah,
now you
yeah,
just kind of
as a unit.
sense it's not that same team anymore. Even though three out of the four faces are the same, the dynamics change. Tommy and
Mhm,
Vince, by all accounts, are hired members of their own band. They don't
mhm,
get a say in what goes on. They're offered a paycheck, and I'm sure they're offered a handsome one to make it work, to have them out there because they are important. But Nikki runs that band,
Yeah.
and but you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. And obviously, Nikki's done a great job to keep them around, all these years, 4 decades later, writing this contract that could not be broken in 2014 or 2013 for the final tour. And well, here we are now, 10 years later, and they're out doing, getting ready to do another run of stadiums with Def Leppard. So,
Yeah.
it's the
yeah.
climate we're in, and they find a way to make it work. But I certainly see what you're saying. I think when Vince is out there doing his solo stuff, I think he truly goes out and has a good time with his guys. I think he's
Right.
on a different, he's got different people watching him. He's probably got to minimize the drinking and go out there and put on a big
Mhm.
rock show because, they're charging a lot of money for those tickets. And I get it, but yeah, it's a little sad. I kind of miss the heyday of the '80s when these guys, they were inseparable. And now you can barely keep them on stage for 2 hours.
Yeah, but it is nice to see like somebody like Vince Neil or Mike Tramp going out with excellent musicians backing him up, and you see that energy, you see that there is a little bit of that fire left in
Sure,
these
sure.
performances, and the internet, it drives me crazy when you go through, you see the memes and artists being criticized for how they sound now. Come on, you guys aren't 20 years old anymore. You're not going to sound like you did in 1989 or whatever. I'm just happy to see that everybody is out there still doing it and having a great time doing it. And it's just awesome. It's awesome to see it, and it's awesome to see this little revival with this style of music, because in after 92, man, it was scary. We didn't know where it was going to go,
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, obviously, it's a testament to the music, that all these
Mhm.
decades later, now generations below me are going to see these bands for the first time. And that's pretty exciting that bands like Loverboy are still out there, Night Ranger. I
Mhm.
mean, it really is amazing. What do you think about some of these bands that are, in order to go out there and try and preserve a little bit of the heyday, uh, running some, in some cases, excessive backing tracks? I mean, have you guys experienced that yourself, and thoughts on that?
Okay,
Well,
I will personally say it doesn't bother me to the extent that it might somebody else. I went to the Wasp show here in Cleveland at the Agora,
Hmm.
and Blackie obviously uses backing tracks. No matter, I don't care if he denies it or not. I was like listening to the CD,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the show was awesome, and that was an artist, that was a band that I had on my bucket list to see because I never saw him as a kid. I saw a lot of bands as a kid, but Wasp was one of them that I did not. And to see that show and just to hear those songs and to see Blackie up there
Yeah.
was pretty awesome. And um, I'm not going to criticize an artist for that. You're paying money to see a good show.
Well, but let me ask you this though: you're paying money to, and I'm always playing devil's advocate. I'm not judging what you choose to do
No,
or not. I don't really have a horse in the race. I mean, some bands, sometimes I'm doing casino gigs, and we've got keyboards and all sorts of shit on track. So I mean, I've done it. Pretty Boy Floyd has backing tracks and some rhythm guitar on tape. So it happens. I've been in bands where it's happened for sure. But you're paying for a live show. You're going to see a live performance,
mm-hmm.
and and I'm not even, just focusing in on Blackie, but, I mean, there's a lot of pop artists out there that, the microphone is just
Well,
a
pop
prop
art has
to
been
keep
doing
their
it for
heels
years.
for sure. And, and then this, we can pull that layer back. I mean, to even Milli Vanilli getting, absolutely shunned for doing that. And now,
Mm-hmm.
people are paying $1,000 to go see Dua Lipa talking to, I mean, she might
Thing.
as well talking to a coffee cup. I mean, it doesn't matter. But when you go see a live show, are you feeling a little jip going, wow, and then at that point you're like, well, I think some of the vocals are on there, or maybe, these songs with the higher vocal, those are on at some point though, you don't even know what's on track and what's not. You can watch the drummer and go, okay, I think he's definitely doing something. The guitar player is doing, like, he's playing the solos, but I don't know. For me, if I knew a band was all tracked or mostly tracked, I probably wouldn't go see it. So I
I would do
just
the
find it,
same.
find it interesting because I want to go see a live show. I want to see the band make a mistake and stop the song and start it over again. I want to experience that once in a lifetime moment that happens in my venue in my city only. That's exciting. That's why we go see live music, for the danger of it.
Right. I mean, I guess it was done also to why they resort to that type of. So, for example, Joe Elliott, of course, uses backing track unless he's some sort of superhuman that sounds exactly like he did in 1987. He uses.
Do you think?
Uh,
Do you think so? Because I've seen
I
videos of
don't think
them.
he does. I think the band does.
Well, no, but I've seen video of those guys backstage practicing their harmonies, and from some people that I know in their camp that has worked for them, they don't run vocal tracks.
okay.
Wow,
I
I mean,
that's pretty amazing because I
yeah.
would think like the backing vocals
yeah,
sound so. I mean, and they're great. They're my favorite band, so
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
going to.
I mean, listen, you get
Right. But
you
but
get a good sound, man. You can add a little bit of verb to it. You can add some effects to make it
yeah,
sound
trick it up a
bigger.
little bit.
But from all accounts, those guys are really singing those choruses. But
Yeah,
not
and
all the
there's
bands are. Like, the other band on that bill, Motley Crue, they're not. Those two girls up there dancing around are not singing. They're not singing. They're dancing around with microphones, So,
yeah, yeah,
and those
yeah.
backing vocals are the same backing vocals they've used for decades. Maybe they've improved them here and there, but tuned them down a little bit. But Motley's running a lot of tracks, and they have, probably a little less now with John Five on guitar, but from all accounts, Def Leppard is primarily, I'd say 99, maybe 100% live, because I think they do
Well,
practice those vocals.
yeah, that's actually impressive, and yeah,
yeah.
I
I mean,
mean, but
that's
my point was that I don't mind backing vocal, I guess, backing tracks for vocals because I mean, after all these years, that's not that you can't really. I mean, you can always get a better guitar, but you can't really improve your voice
Yeah,
beyond not not your natural like aging, right? So I mean, Vince Neil, he can practice all he wants, but he's never gonna sound like he did in the '80s, right? But I mean, there's no excuse for Nicky Six using tracks for his bass, right? Because he
yeah,
why can't you just play, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
I don't know.
that's where I kind of get like
Hmm.
that. It's that stuff. Like, why can't Nikki play the bass? But we
Right.
don't know. I mean, we don't know the extent of it. We don't know the extent of it. But when it comes to vocals, John Bon Jovi, and I love Bon Jovi. I'm a big
yeah,
Bon Jovi fan, been forever. His voice, I feel like there's something wrong. I feel like there's something physically wrong with him. No,
yeah,
I'm not saying it as a joke. I'm saying it as like I don't know if maybe because if you look at he looks like when he sings now, it seriously looks like he's hurting. Like He's
Yeah, yeah,
in pain to get those words out, and that's
yeah.
hard to watch.
No, no, no. I agree with you. There's something going on there, and because there is a look in his eye, and also, the other thing though is I mean, I applaud him for going up there and singing, but
Mhm.
the last tour that he did, I wasn't there in person, but I saw a video. It was terrible. He's lost all his range, but even from that, even if his range is minimized and they tune down a little bit, so his voice can fit in and he can sing
Mhm.
a 90-minute or 2-hour show. He's like, I don't know why you changed the melodies to those great songs. I get wanting to
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
I'm gonna sing this line a little different. Maybe there's a note in there that goes high. I'm gonna sing it a little different to still make it stand out, but I'm not gonna do it like I
Mhm.
did in '87. But um, you take some liberties here and there to make it interesting for yourself, make it interesting for the fans. But I mean, he's singing like so behind the beat, like I'm like, what melody is that? And
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
hard to understand how do those guys keep up? I
yeah,
mean, they're great
it's
musicians, but that's gotta be
for
driving
sure.
them nuts.
Yeah,
I mean,
but in in the world of Journey, so Arnell was having some vocal issues, and he had some very, was widely reported that this is some years ago, and they talked about how they changed their in-ear monitor guy,
mhm,
and he can now, for some reason, whatever this new monitor guy did, he can really hear himself. Because as a singer, when you can't hear yourself, you start over projecting, you're overcompensating, and you can't
mhm.
hear the damage that you're doing, and you're just trying to hear that voice in your head, so you start pushing more. um I feel like John can't hear himself, or he can't hear the
Yeah,
music or
yeah.
something. It's really bizarre. There's something going on there. And I think they just announced today that there's a 4-part documentary coming out on them in April, maybe on Hulu or something.
Yeah, I
And
think yeah, on Hulu, yeah.
I think Richie Sambora has been interviewed for it, and
Well, I
it's
think they're
yeah,
reuniting to do some stuff.
it'll be
So,
interesting to see, because one thing that Richie said was, "Hey, I think before we talk about reuniting, it's the 40th anniversary of what, Slippery or something, I don't know.
yeah.
70, one of those huge albums." He's like, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on with John's voice, but he's got to figure it out." I mean, he
Mhm.
he said what we're all thinking, so
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Well,
yeah,
hopefully it gets worked out, and um,
yeah,
hopefully it's not a medical condition that, is
yeah.
because I mean,
There's a
that's
look
gotta
in his
continue.
eyes that's a little off-putting, because John's a
Yeah.
confident guy and a very smart guy,
Mhm.
and also very talented. And I don't know that I'd want to be the one to go, "Hey, John, you good?" But where again, we talk about the management and that earning that 15%. Like, if John's going out there sucking, it sucks his legacy. It's like, whoa, that's not. I mean, he becomes the joke a lot of these bands become, and I'm surprised
Yeah.
that people in his camp have not said, "Hey, you're not
Yes.
you're not where you need to be," and that's okay. He's fucking human. I get it, but
Yeah, yeah.
something's wrong there, and
yeah.
I mean,
Someone,
everybody's listen. We're all thinking it. His band has to be thinking it, but those guys don't want the paycheck to end. So I get that. That's one of those moments where, unlike me, maybe you don't, you know, say the quiet part out loud to keep your
Yeah.
kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
uh, yes, and I mean his 2020 album. It doesn't sound like Bon Jovi at all. I mean, that's also that, right? I mean, they strayed so far from the original sound at this point that they might as well be a different band. I mean, they might as well call it something else, right? Not Bon Jovi. And but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember when I saw him live in like 2009. I think that was the last time, and it
Mhm.
was already different, right? And it's almost like 10 years ago, more than that, yeah, and more than 10 years ago, and it already sounded different back then. I mean, but that was just a matter of age. At this point, it's also, I think he surrounds himself with like yes mans, right? Like no
Yeah, he
one's
probably does. I
everyone's
mean,
everyone's afraid to tell him no, right? And no one really looks after him, right? I mean, if he's the money maker and he's the main image, right? I mean, he has no incentive to get back with Richie, I guess. And Richie has no incentive to get back with him either. And so I don't know what the future is like for him. I just
Well,
wish.
no, I think they talked about it. I think they do want to collaborate again.
I think John needs Richie more than Richie needs John at this point, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
And
agree.
yeah,
listen,
I agree.
Richie's mailbox is full of checks. He's making dough whether he's in that band or not,
Mhm.
and so his mailbox money situation is quite good. But I see John needing Richie for Bon Jovi because and there are a lot of these bands as great, good looking, and talented as John Bon Jovi is, and he is the John Bon Jovi of Bon Jovi. Richie Sambora is right there with him,
Mhm.
equally. I mean, people. It's like Tyler and Perry.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Jovi and Sambora, they go together. Angus and Brian Johnson or whatever era of there are these bands, Robin Zander and Rick Nielsen. There are just these two entities that go together in the same breath, and you can't say Bon Jovi without a Richie Sambora up there, and Phil X is a great guitar player. I think if
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think if Richie gets back in the band, I think Phil X remains in that
I
band too,
think
by the way.
yeah, I think they can benefit from that. Yeah.
For
I
sure.
don't see Phil X leaving. It would be great to see for fans, and you get Richie's voice,
Yeah,
which was very, very big to Bon Jovi.
yeah,
You had
he was
John's
Right.
voice, you had Richie's voice. It was
yeah.
very big, and that'll
Yeah,
be
I
good.
recently rediscovered his solo album from 1991, and it's
Such a
such a
great
good
album.
record.
Oh,
Such a
such a
great
good album. I
Stranger in
love
the
it.
Town. Yeah, such a great
I
album.
love that like blues rock from that era, like the Great
Mhm.
Whites and what
Yeah.
Richie was doing, and bands like Tangier, and I really got into that like Southern style. That was something that was very cool to me, like
Mhm.
back then. And being a kid like that, I was into like the heavy stuff and like the anthems. But when that stuff came on, man, it was so soulful, and there was like you felt that stuff, man.
Oh
You really did, and I mean, that's just shit. I'm getting goosebumps now
yeah.
talking about that.
Right on.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
So
So okay. So let's backtrack a little bit. I mean, this is the Hollywood Dreams podcast after all, and we got to at least at some point touch on the Hollywood scene somehow. so,
yeah,
Troy, you went to LA like in the early '90s, but you were just a kid, right?
Yeah, I was right out of high school. I graduated in 91, and you graduate in the fall, typically of the year that you graduate high school. And spring of 92, I was driving my Dodge Daytona, following my buddy Mark, our bass player, in a band that had kind of dissolved at the time. He and I were moving out, so he had his car and a U-Haul attached to it with some drums and a bass rig in the back, and we made our way all the way, 2,200 miles from Northwest Indiana to L.A. to Los Feliz to live with our manager who had been there, for years prior. So yeah, I spent 22 years in Southern California.
So when you got there, I mean, it was already a different landscape
Yeah,
than
for
it
sure.
was just a few years prior, right? So what do you remember? What you encountered when you got there? How was it? What you were expecting, or was it something different? Or
Yeah, I mean it's certainly all relative. It wasn't, like the what was the movie, from the
Decline of
Sunset Strip.
Western
Yeah,
civilization.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. It was not the decline at that. I was after
Those
that,
days were
but I've certainly had seen that, but I was aware because I had not only our former manager living out there already for years, but a buddy of mine that I went to school with that was a couple grades ahead of me. He had already been living out there, so I kind of knew the landscape, and there were some different bands happening. And the reason why I went out there was to, I mean, I was ready to go and do something, take a chance, and I had two
Mhm.
good friends living in LA, but I needed a reason. I didn't want to just move to LA to move to LA. And so then I was given a reason. A buddy of mine said, "Hey, this girl, Christina Laurie, is putting a band together." Well, she was married to Jace, or still is married to Jace from South Gang. And she
okay,
had, like, they had a band called Floyd's Funk Revival, but she was doing her solo stuff. And and Jace was in the band as the bass player, and they were kind of doing some crossover bluesy, and now I think she's like a Christian artist, but still has some of the blues influence and stuff like that, adult contemporary, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But that was the reason I was going to move out and check out this band. Well, I never even met her, like it was one of those things like, they never held auditions. They ended up not doing her solo thing. They ended up just doing Floyd's Funk Revival because I think they were able to do some covers and get paid money. So the whole reason why I moved out there, I never even met the girl, but I remember going to see her at the Roxy and like, hey, I'm going to meet her. Hey, I came out from Indiana. I'm going to join your band. None of that happened. You know, and I ended up staying there for 22 years. I just instantly just started hitting the pavement hard, putting ads out, got a day job at Ticketmaster selling tickets, for all sorts of events, and then just made the rounds with different bands and put out ads, answered ads, and started finding my way playing with some of these guys like Todd Howarth, who was in Ace Frehley's Comet. I ended up playing in a band, answering an ad that he had, and from there it just you just kind of worked yourself up the ladder with some of these different artists and people that I've played with over the past 30 plus years.
So I guess that's how you ended up playing with Mike Trump, right?
Yeah, so I was playing in a band all made up of guys from Chicago, Northwest Indiana, called Dragon, and it was a three-piece blues rock band. And the one of the bands that we used to play with, um, all the time, we'd always do bills together, playing all over LA. Um, had heard about he was supposed to be the drummer for Mike Tramp's solo tour in 2001. Mike put out an album called Capricorn in '99, and he was going to come to the States and tour. And so he was going to use Kenny Carade and Jerry Best from the Freakin' Nature band, which was
Mm.
the band post White Lion. Very cool, grungy, heavy band,
Yeah.
great songs, a lot of energy. Really, really kick-ass band. Check out Freak of Nature if you haven't. And so anyway, this drummer couldn't do the gig because it was going to be a 5-week tour and he couldn't do it. So he's reaching out to friends and was reaching out to, he was in a different band, reaching out to a band that we had in common, friends of ours, saying, hey man, I can't do this gig. You know any rock drummers? And this guy's like, oh, this guy Troy, I know this guy Troy, he might be good for it. So I came and auditioned for Jerry and Kenny, and Jerry and Kenny gave me the thumbs up and told Mike, hey, we got it. We think we got a guy. And so I rehearsed with them, and then Mike came in and we did one rehearsal, and I was in the solo band. And weeks later, we went off on really kind of like one of my first national tours, going out as a headliner with Mike Tramp solo.
And you've
Nice.
been with him how long now? How long
Well,
since 99?
Well, 2001 is when I did my first tour.
Mhm.
2005, he was, was propositioned to put White Lion back together. Probably, needed to generate some dough, and so what he did was, well, I'm going to do Tramp's White Lion, and he got a guy from kind of everywhere. Because what Mike would do was he would travel to different markets and then have the band waiting for him there. So he had a band in Australia, had a European band, a Danish
Mm,
band, because this way
okay.
he's not flying groups of people all around the world. It's
Right.
very
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah.
So when he kind
Gotta
of
have
handpicked his
franchises.
guys, yeah, exactly. Which is a very smart thing to do if you can.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But he picked the guitar player from Australia, picked his Danish brother Klaus for bass. We picked up a keyboard player guy from Germany that was pretty much insisted, I'll do it for free kind of thing. Like, because he wasn't going to do keyboards initially, but then we ended up adding a keyboard player, which we actually ended up really opening up a lot of doors musically to do stuff that White Lion had never done live. And then he picked me as this drummer, so we had an international band of brothers, you could say. And we did that band from '05 to December of 2008. We put out one solo, or I should say one studio album, two live albums, and then those have been repurposed. I see them everywhere now, like under different names, but it's the same recording. And then also a
Mhm.
live DVD from the Bang Your Head Festival. So,
Oh,
um, I had that stint in '01, and then from '05 to '09, and I've remained pretty good friends with Tramp over the years since then. But he recently came to the States. I was supposed to do his U.S. tour. There's a lot of kind of nonsense. I feel like he handled things kind of poorly with me and how he wanted to do things. He wanted to get a different agent. He wanted to do all this stuff, and I set up a lot of things on a platter for him. And I was going to be the guy to go out and play drums. And then they decided while they were out doing their acoustic tour. Well, it wasn't acoustic, but it was semi-electric with drum tracks and loops.
Mhm.
They'd hit a
Yeah,
button
yeah,
and then
Yeah.
play the two guitars.
yeah.
And they got really good, as they should, accolades for doing that. Instead of going out there two guys on a stool playing acoustic telling stories, they did it with a full rock sound. So when people were like expecting this, oh great, another acoustic show with sad stories, they got kind of a sort of a souped up acoustic show that had the feeling of a live band. Well, then he was like, well, I'm doing the songs of White Lion and we're going to do them live now. And Mike had not toured with a full band since it'd been 15 years since we did it in '08. So
Mhm.
he was going to come here with this full band. And then they got the idea going, well, we don't want to do drums and amps. We want to do a little pad, like a little drum pad, that Roland sells. So you're going to play on this drum pad. And I was like, well, this doesn't sound like a full band electric tour to me. This sounds like the tracks tour that you were doing, but with people just playing the tracks. And I go, I feel like, but I was going to do it. I was like, well, hey, I'm not going to knock it until I try it. I'll get this pad. They were going to get the pad. I was going to come down and rehearse on it. I had come back from some shows in Italy with Gilby, and I said, hey, I'm going to come down there to LA to rehearse and try these songs out. And I just got the notice from the guitar player saying, "Oh, hey, I ended up finding a guy, and he's gonna do it." And I was like blindsided, by
Wow.
it all. And and I had taken out the whole fall of this year or last year to go out and be with him again, and he's like, hey man, you're my guy, you're always my guy, and we're gonna go out and do this. And then he changed how he wanted to do that. And I think the guitar player who he kind of let be the music director didn't feel confident that I would be able to adapt to this little drum thing. Turns out when they ended up going out there, they ended up playing with just an electronic drum kit, no amps on stage, and just kind of doing what they had been doing in the spring,
Mhm.
but just with a real drum, but it was electric and a bass going through a pedal board, which,
Yeah.
whatever, I'm fine. I mean, who wants to lug all that gear around? I just think if you're going to do an 80s band, White Lion, the songs of White Lion, full band electric, I don't want to see electronic drums up there. I
Yeah.
think it was shitty. So, you know, uh, that kind of goes back to bands having issues, and are people able to put those issues away to get back up on stage again? Listen, if Mike and I had a heart to heart and he said, yeah, that you kind of got shafted last year and I apologize for that, I want to do something, are you in? I would certainly consider it. I don't want to, shit on 20
Mhm.
years of a friendship, but I feel how things were handled last year just weren't cool. It's just not what you do to people. But
Yeah.
listen, whatever. He's on his own. He does his own thing, and he always has. And I haven't suffered because of it. I'm good. I just I would probably proceed with hesitancy at this point.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
And
has
don't
to
blame me.
be so. Mike and Vito's has to be one of the longest running rock and roll feuds out there as well, right? I mean,
Well,
and
I don't know
I
that
don't
they're
think it's a
they're
feud.
feuding. Yeah, I don't think they're
Yeah, I
feuding. I
think
mean,
it's just
certainly listen, there was a time when there was a feud because Mike was going out there. I mean, we were supposed to do the Poison Rat tour in '07, and we got booted from it because Vito filed a lawsuit against everybody, saying you
and
can't
that
use
was
this
over the
logo.
name, right? Correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was over the name. And the Live Nation and the other entities are like, listen, because one of the first questions was when we were asked, well, can you go out and tour as White Lion? We were told by the fake attorney that we had, uh, you can look him up. His name is Gabe Reed. He spent time in jail for ripping people off.
oh wow,
Um, yeah, he
Great
was
guy.
in Rolling Stone magazine. Yeah, yeah, one of my favorites. I mean, he's really the reason why a lot of stuff with White Lion went sour because He didn't show up to a court case, and he didn't have an attorney's license anyway. But Vito
Jeez.
won by default, and that's a whole nother story. And you can, I'm sure, read his book or read the articles. I've talked, I've talked a little bit about. I know Gabe, and for better or for worse, but all the information's out there. I'm not saying anything that's not true, but
Mhm.
anyway, short story long is, yeah, they did have a feud because Vito was unhappy with Mike going out there and didn't want to diminish the legacy. And I mean, at one point Mike had said, the way to look at it as there's one piece of pie left, and Vito didn't want the piece of pie, but he didn't want Mike to have the piece of pie either. But I think since then they have come around, and I think they're friendly. I mean, they still have business together with publishing and rights
Yeah,
and releases and stuff like that. All four of those guys do. But I think that's the extent of their relationship, is whatever remaining business there is.
yeah, and
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
heard.
it's I guess it's sad for us as fans, right? That we don't, eh,
Yeah.
we probably won't ever see a full blown reunion, right?
No,
Well,
I don't
I don't
think
even
I
think
don't
Vito
think he will.
plays anymore.
Yeah,
No,
that's kind of the word, is that he doesn't play. There's been some rumors that he would pick up an acoustic guitar with nylon strings, and he can still play. I don't know to what extent. He doesn't play every day, but I think the biggest thing is that I think he was so just disappointed in the business and how things went down. I think I'm
Yeah.
speaking for him. This is my observation, and I can't speak for him, but I don't know this firsthand, but I think he was just so disappointed in how things went down, the music industry, and how disappointing and lame it is, that he's
Mhm.
like, why the fuck would I ever want to be part of that? And I don't blame him. There are some guys that just go, why would I want to be part of this institution that, screws over the artists that are making them money? And, I mean, you think about, this is another angle here, but think about Spotify. All the people every year, they share their how many streams they got, but then you read an article saying that 1 billion streams made somebody $12.
right.
Why would you blood, sweat, and tears, and bad breakups, and God knows what inspires people to write songs, and then to have the success of a billion streams, and then you get a check for I'm exaggerating, for $12. You go, what the fuck am I doing all this for? You know what I mean? Like, because somebody's making the money. It's not the
Yeah.
artist, though. And I think Vito's just so just like put off by the nonsense of the music business, that he
Mhm.
just is not inspired to be an inmate of it anymore. And I can't say I
Yeah,
don't blame him.
and that's kind of been the talk of the town since like 92, 93 with him.
Yeah, well,
Even back
whenever
then.
Yeah, when somebody disappears like that, I mean, think about his guitar playing and how well known. And obviously there's the Eddie Van Halen comparisons, you know, and then when you disappear like that and you've stayed pretty much under all radars for decades,
Yeah.
absence makes the heart go wander. So that's why some of these bands that come back after 10 years for not playing or doing a single thing, they're out there playing, arenas and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Or big giant casinos,
Mhm.
because people want to know what the heck happened. And oh my God, they haven't been around in 10 years. Let's go see them. There's a lot of bands cashing in on that one last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always the added mystery, right? So why, what happened? He, like with Vinnie Vincent, for example, for a lot of years he went under the radar. No one knew if he even was alive or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And at some point he decided to come back to dubious success, right? But but yeah, this like that added mystery of what happened to him, and is he ever gonna be back to inform and whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
I guess yeah.
It is weird when somebody like that just kind of disappears, and they're not really ever heard or seen again. You see little, I think the last time he was out in public, on a stage, was he was singing backgrounds for Cheap Trick or something, singing Surrender at some event that was out on the East
Hmm.
Coast. So, but from all accounts that I've heard, who knows what's true or not, but still lives in the same neighborhood, maybe even in the same house, and he's taking care of his family, and he
Hmm.
um, found a way to do that. and good for him for doing so. If he's able to provide and take care of his family, and he just doesn't want the nonsense of it anymore. Because I think White Lion had a pretty bad breakup, and when
Yeah, it was
things ended,
pretty
it,
ugly from what I remember.
yeah, there's that, and then nobody from the label, all these people that you pay your percentages to and that you entrust to take care of the band, like when they said, yeah, we're not doing it anymore. Nobody, like everybody said, it was like, okay, and then nobody heard from anybody ever again, really. You know what I mean? And then
Mm.
that almost makes you think, well, what were we doing it for? Like we were. So like all the business people that we employed for all these years, they're just on to the next gig. And then I bet you that was a big mind funk for them to kind of go, wow, maybe nobody cares. So that's
Yeah,
got to be a little disheartening. And who wants to set yourself up for that disappointment again?
yeah, and I'll say this about White Lion. What's crazy is, okay, obviously Pride is an amazing record. I mean, that's a great record. A lot of great stuff on it. Big Game seemed a little rushed to me. I didn't feel like with the ex, probably. I do love their version of Radar Love on that album,
Yeah, yeah,
but when Main Attraction came out, that is a killer record, man.
yeah.
Mm.
I
That is a
you know what
good record. And then it was,
Well, you have your entire life to write your first album, then you got 2 weeks to write the second one.
yeah, yeah.
And you got to
Yeah.
oh, so and so's coming up with this song, and this song's a hit. We need one of those. We need a loving in the elevator. We need a cherry pie. We need a something catchy, whatever that. We need a ballad. Whatever it is.
Yeah,
And so you're not writing from your heart anymore. Now you're oh, we need one of these little dancey tunes. Um, so they were rushed right back out there, and the
yeah.
songs didn't have a chance to grow the way they did for that first album. That's usually what a lot of those bands experience.
Yeah.
You got
But
the
it's like it's those albums that the bands did towards the tail end of that.
yeah,
Warren Dog Eat Dog album,
yeah, we're the better,
Main
we're the
Attraction.
better ones.
They're so these albums, and Santi, I'm sure you can name off a few. You're a big fan of the Prisoners in Paradise album from Europe, another band.
Oh yeah.
Just they put out these great records that just kind of got lost in all that.
The transition. Yeah.
It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. And the change of the music scene, I'm sure, had a lot to do with bands kind of just falling apart. And
Yeah, I mean,
that's
main attraction is definitely a fantastic sign off for the band.
yeah,
It's in my opinion their best sounding album. It's absolutely great production, and they finally achieved, I think, the sound that they were going for since the beginning. Right? I mean, they always had that raw sound that none of the other '80s bands had. Maybe rap to some extent at the beginning, but
yeah. I love the
uh,
Fight to Survive album too. The
the
very
Yeah,
Five to
first
Survive
album. I
is
love
so
it.
raw, and so it's
heavy.
like you can feel. It's also I always find it so funny because given the boy band past that Mike had, he transitioned to that raw heavy metal sound,
Yeah,
and
right.
that's so interesting. But yeah, I mean, White Lion is definitely one of the bands that stood out for me because of that. Like it has this, while being within the mold of the '80s metal band, they found a way to make it different, like spin it in a way that's interesting. That, I mean, their lyrics, for example, they were always different. They sometimes touched on political issues or social issues or whatever. It kind of stood out that way as well, right? It's not all sex and and
Yeah,
drugs and
yeah,
whatever.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely
yeah.
a different band content wise, and
Mhm.
melodic, and even though it was a fun band, it wasn't a party band. And that's okay
Mm.
because there was a lot of party bands. We had enough of that, in that era. But yeah, and then main attraction. I feel like you do that first album, you hone in on it for a couple years with producers, you get the record deal, and then you go in there and you trim up all the fat and put it together, and then you start hitting instantly. The band's got to go out on the road, and then by the time they start going down, it's like, all right, we need another album. like now, and maybe you've got some stuff demo, but you're not growing those songs. I feel like by the time they got to the next album, they had a little bit more control, uh, because now, the second album is done well. And, now they were able to, kind of find that happy medium where they were able to do things a little bit more on their own terms, spend some more time with the songs and, say, hey, we want to put out good content here. Let's not rush this last album.
Yeah, and when you think about it, I mean, back in the 60s, bands used to, I mean, the Beatles, bands like that used to put out 2 albums a year. And
Right.
that's absolutely insane if you think about it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. the, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they did it, but yeah, um, but yeah, I mean, while I am, so not to change the subject a lot, but you're now playing with Gilby, right? So are you friends with him, or how did you come up with being in his band?
Well, this goes back to the Pretty Boy Floyd. He said I was working at the agency. Gilby was one of the artists on the roster. And,
Mm-hmm.
so when I got hired there, I was supposed to look at the roster and, pick some of the bands. And I'm like, well, what are these bands doing? Let's go down each one. We got the Gilby. And I'm like, well, what's up with Gilby? We don't know. Every time we get an offer for him, he doesn't take it. So I knew people that knew him and
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of friends in common. So I called him up and I said, hey, I'm working over at Artists Worldwide, blah, blah, blah. Why aren't you playing shows? Now, this goes back to like 2010. So I've been playing with Gilby this will be my 13, 14 year. And he goes, oh, well, I don't have a band. I said, oh, well, if you had a band, you do some shows. She's like, yeah. I said, well, I play drums. I know EJ, who EJ played with them, I think like in '07. EJ also subbed in on bass for White Lion. And EJ Kirst from the band Silent Rage.
Yeah, yeah,
So, it was all kind of incestual. That's usually how this business is. Everybody kind of knows everybody, especially in LA. And so he sent me 3 songs. He said, well, learn these songs. Let's get together and see how it goes. We did one rehearsal. He's like, oh, this is great. Let's book some shows. And that's how it happened. I called him up and he didn't do shows because he didn't have a band. And I sort of said, okay, well, you got a band now, let's make sure it feels good. And I've been playing with them ever since. And this will be I think my first trip to South America with him, although it'll be my 5th, I think, trip to South America. I've been there many times and looking forward to getting back. We got a bunch of dates coming up
yeah,
at gilbyclark.com, Clark with an E on it. And you can also find any and all this stuff at drummertroy.com. But we're looking forward to hitting all the countries in South America, except we have canceled the Ecuador show. There's some unrest there, and we're not doing that one. That will be
yeah.
on the 10th. We will unfortunately not see our Ecuadorian friends because things are just a little scary there. So
Might not want
unfortunately,
to.
yeah, we're
Might not
gonna go
want
ahead and just avoid that one.
We'll sleep that one out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so you said it's your fifth time in South America. It's your first time in Argentina, or have you been
No,
already?
I've been there before. Yeah, I've been there before with White Lion.
to.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah,
I believe
I
so.
bet
I mean,
it's that.
I feel like I have been there. I'd have to look up the dates, but I want to say like '06, '07. I know we did everywhere like in '08.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
I
I believe so. But I might
yeah.
I
So,
might I might be wrong. Sometimes, it's like it's the airport to the hotel to the venue, back to the hotel, back to the airport again. And after 30 years of doing this, sometimes they run into each other. But I swear I have an Argentinian stamp in my passport from some point.
yeah, man. I mean, I'm sure I will be getting tickets for the Argentine show. I'm hoping someday Gilby will play some Candy tunes, which are my favorite
Yeah. Yeah.
of his
We've never
backlog.
done any of those, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know, I know. I mean, I'm sure he likes them, but I don't know how many fans are gonna know them really.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a fan of Gilby Clark, you'd know him.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think you would anyway.
No, I saw him on his last show he did in Argentina back in, I don't know, 2014, 15, something like that.
Yeah.
And and yeah, he played Akil from Frill's song
Yeah.
"Motorcycle Cowboys," and which is a fantastic song. I was surprised to. I was. It was a. It's a nice surprise to hear it live. It's one of those songs you don't ever think you're gonna hear live, and when he played it, I was quite happy. So
Yeah,
yeah, that
I
was
saw Gilby one time, and that was with GNR. It was the
okay.
only time I
Yeah.
saw him.
Well, he also, of course, he plays a lot of GNR songs, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean, I would love for him to come back to Cleveland. So if you want to put that in his ear, maybe
Yeah. Well, we were in
we'd love to see
Akron
you
just
guys.
we played Akron just like I want to say 2 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long
Um,
ago you guys were,
yeah,
and Akron, where I'm
like
living.
22, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Akron's like literally like right next door to me, and
Yeah.
I can't remember what was going on, why I didn't go to that gig. I do a lot of video for bands here locally,
Sure. Okay.
so I probably had a video gig or something. I can't imagine why I would have missed that gig, but
It happens. Just means we got to come back.
yeah, yeah, come back, and I
yeah,
will
and
be there.
I mean, if you need recommendations and places to eat, man, just let me know. I'll hit you up.
Right on, man.
All right. We're past the hour mark. So I
I
think we
told you
should.
I talk too much.
No, no. I mean, we would. I mean, we could. I feel we could talk for hours,
We could
and
probably do another 2 hours.
yeah.
There's a
At
lot of
some
stuff
point,
to
we gotta
always
have to
discuss.
wrap it up. So we always like to wrap it up
Yeah.
with the same topic of what. Well, let's first say let's first talk about what albums would you or yeah, what albums would you take to Desert Island, right?
Desert Island. Well,
Yeah.
I
Desert
mean,
Island
really,
albums.
Live and Dangerous, Thin Lizzy. I would do Cheap Tricks, Greatest Hits. I would do Dogman by King's X. And God, who's another band? I'd put together a mixtape of Enough's Enough. Those are bands that I, grew up on and digging. Obviously, anything by Aerosmith, Dio. I mean, these are all bands that I started to cut my teeth in, early at a young age. But Thin Lizzy, Cheap Trick,
Hmm.
Dio, Enough's Enough, that kind of stuff.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, I mean, I think I can see that transpire into your work afterwards, right? That legendary albums for sure. Dave, would you add anything to to the list?
Yeah, oh yeah. First of all, it's very diverse. The list is you're all over the hard rock and roll map. um, I think I would throw definitely Def Leppard High and Dry, Riot, Fire Down Under would be in there. Um, man,
Hmm.
there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot that could go in there. I think I would put White Lion's Pride in there. I love
Hey, there
Tell
you
Me,
go.
Oh
great
yeah,
song. I
yeah,
love Tell Me.
definitely,
That's
definitely.
that's actually one of my favorite all time songs. It's up there. Man,
Right
oh,
on,
there's so many
right
great
on.
records.
Right, yeah, right on.
So many.
Okay, so Troy, I mean, thank you so much for being on the show. I think we had a great time. I hope you did as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. Good stuff. Good conversation. On stuff
Hmm.
that kind of applies to us as fans of music and in the industry. You're doing your show here, talking to musicians and talking about the industry. So it's all interesting stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
And to have someone like you who have you've shared the stage with a lot of our heroes, and that's awesome. And for you to take the time out and to come on here and talk with us, very appreciated and
Yeah,
just a lot of respect and thank you.
I appreciate that, man. My pleasure. I'm just a kid, like you guys. I just happen to, you know, be lucky enough to play with some of these guys over the years,
Mhm.
and sometimes you sit back and you think about, man, that was really cool. Those were some fun times because like I said, at the end of the day, after all the BS, we're still kids in the garage playing to Kiss, because
Yeah.
that's, and you just get excited about it because we all love music. It brings us all together. And so, I never take for granted the experiences that I've had, and I just try and make sure as I get older, I make the most out of them these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. And I promise next time you guys roll into town, if you're
Yeah,
with Gilby or whoever you're with,
yeah.
for the beer's on me, man.
All right, I'll take you up on that for sure. And then
Definitely.
Santi, hit me up when we get to Argentina. I'll see what I can do to get you to that show so you can come out and say hi.
Awesome, man. Ah, for sure, for sure.
Awesome.
I'll hit you up. I'll pay for the beers as well.
Oh, look at that, sweet. I mean, we do it for the stories and for the beers. That's what.
Yeah,
Stories and
for
beers.
sure. Stories and beers. That's
Might
the
have
name
been
of the
different in the 80s, but it's all
Yeah,
right.
right.
Yeah, yeah. All right, man. Thanks again. And yeah, I mean, I'll probably the episode will probably go up between next week or the week after. But yeah, I'll let you know once it's up.
Cool. Yeah, I'll share it on all my socials. And if you can just include drummertroy.com for all my
Sure.
links, it's got everything. I'm doing primarily on Wednesday. Well, every Wednesday live, I do a live radio show called This, That, and the Other. And
Hmm.
we've got guests from all walks of life. We do some silly stuff. It's a 3-hour live show with a lot of music, a lot of stories. We talk about the news and nonsense and have a good time with it. So uh, that's every Wednesday live 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on the West
Awesome.
Coast. All
Awesome.
right,
So
guys.
if you're listening, be sure to check that out. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Check it out. You can find everything at drummertroy.com, even a playback link there where you can listen to it. So, and get links to
Oh,
the
cool.
archives. Got
Cool.
a lot of great interviews over the years. I've been doing this 6 years, so got a lot
Oh,
of
wow.
really good interviews, and I'll get some more up very soon in the archives.
Cool. 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 All right, man. Thanks a lot. Take care, and thank you once again.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you, Dave and Santee. Take care, man.
Thanks, Troy,
Take
man.
care.
Awesome.
See you guys.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.